We're back here on CBS Sports HQ, and here we have it. The Week 1 schedule for 2024. Green Bay against the Eagles. How about the Cardinals? Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Bills. Patriots, Bengals. How about the Rams against the Lions? Right? Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff. The Commanders, Jaden Daniels, their top pick, going up against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Cowboys, Browns, that should be entertaining. Then Denver against the Seattle Seahawks. Vikings, Giants. You got the Jags against the Dolphins. Then BMAC Steelers taking on the Falcons, who there are a lot of questions there about what they're doing at QB with Kirk Cousins and then also Michael Penix Jr. All right, back here with Brian McFadden, two-time Super Bowl champ, and you just saw the Week 1 schedule. What excites you the most right now?
Oh, man, it's a lot, Chris. It's a lot to unpack. You know, we talked about Baltimore, Kansas City a lot already. You know, highlighted the Jets, San Francisco, briefly talked about Green Bay and Philadelphia. But when you talk about those matchups, those are marquee matchups, playoff caliber teams. You know what I mean? When you talk about the expectations and the success they had a year ago, and along with some of the added personnel. So for me, when you look at other games that we haven't really highlighted yet, I got to go down to the Dirty South. Atlanta, right? Pittsburgh and Atlanta, the Falcons. And the reason why I'm highlighting that matchup, clearly, of course, I played with Pittsburgh, but then what will this Steelers offense look like with Russell Wilson at the quarterback position? Or will it be Justin Fields? Regardless, it's going to be a new quarterback from what we saw in 2023 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Under Arthur Smith as the new OC, who was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons a year ago. And then when you transition to Atlanta, let's keep it real. Since the draft, they've been one of the more talked about teams in the National Football League that did not make the playoffs a year ago. Didn't come close to making the playoffs. So Kirk Cousins in this new look regime offensively for Atlanta, how will they look? Will they showcase the ability to be a relevant team in the NFC, or will they still have some concerns? Because some people feel like the NFC with Atlanta in the NFC South could be a dark horse team to make it out of the division based on how watered down the division potentially could be when you look at what happened or did not happen a year ago in the NFC South. So that's another matchup. And then if you want to transition to another prime time game on a night, in a night opportunity, you have the Rams traveling to Detroit. Two teams we saw face off last year, two teams that have big-time ties. When you talk about Brad Holmes, who was once with the Rams, when you talk about the two quarterbacks who played for both teams in past opportunities. So, and I love Detroit. I think Detroit has an opportunity to compete with the cream of the crop in the NFC. And Sean McVay, I think Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the National Football League. The job he did last year was second best to what he did when the year they won the Super Bowl. That's to me is how impressive the job he did last year, getting into the playoffs with a lot of unknown players that became household names because of their development and his ability to put them in good situations.
Especially Puka Nacua.
Yes.
Nobody expected
Kyron Williams.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, just the lists go on, the names go on and on. Just underscores, how great of a coach Sean McVay is. But if there's one matchup, B-Mac, you had to circle as your favorite, which one would it be? And wait, hold up, we got Bears.
Yeah, we got the Bears.
Caleb Williams against Will Levis.
Will Levis, that's I mean, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, that's the matchup you want. At home against Tennessee.
We need to get Joe Moose on here.
I think Joe would second that. So, give me Tennessee. Even though Tennessee has improved dramatically, but that's the matchup you want. You know, another matchup that I like as I look there, let's go all the way down to South Florida. Jacksonville traveling to Miami to play against the Miami Dolphins. Jacksonville, in my opinion, Chris, was one of the more disappointing teams in the National Football League compared to what they did under year one under Doug Peterson, and then bounced back to not bouncing at all in his second year as the head coach. Can they bounce back? Can Trevor Lawrence look like the next great quarterback? What about Tua Tagovailoa? Two quarterbacks that are fighting to potentially have a new contract. Will Tua Tagovailoa have a contract in place by the time this game kicks off? We don't know. But both teams believe they have their guy at the quarterback position to lead their franchise moving forward. So that's another intriguing matchup as well. When you talk about week 1 matchups, that's a 1 o'clock game in the 1 o'clock slate of ball games. So I like that because of the parity between both organizations and the connection when you look at the quarterback. Right, the expectation for both said quarterbacks.
Yeah, and they're very polarizing QBs. You know, some people think they're great. Other people think that, you know, the Dolphins and the Jaguars should eventually move on from Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. But we'll see how it all shakes out this year. How about the Browns, man? They have the toughest schedule, right, according to the opponent's last year's winning percentage. We know what happened last season, right, where the Browns had all these injuries. They bring Joe Flacco off the street from his home, taking care of his kids, and they get him into the playoffs. This time, they have Deshaun Watson back. Hopefully, Mr. Chubb is going to be at his optimal form. How do you think they're going to fare this season? Do they get to 11 wins?
You know what, Chris? I think so. I think this is a talented team, but they were successful without their franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. So that puts a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson, because this is a team a year ago that showed all of us they could win without you, based on their defense being unbelievable and finding the ways to get serviceable guys at the quarterback position. Now look at their schedule. Let's keep their schedule up real quick for me. When you look at the first 5 ball games, if you're Cleveland, if you can find a way to take care of your business at home against Dallas and Jacksonville, you can go into week 6 undefeated. Now I understand there's a lot that could happen between now and week 6, but when you look at what the teams did a year ago outside of Dallas and even Jacksonville, I mean, Giants didn't do a lot last year. The Raiders, we know about the Commanders and their issues. They have a new quarterback. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Cleveland to get to jump out early when it comes to winning ball games, because week 1, you got Dallas, a worthy opponent, playoff caliber opponent, but they will be favored in that ball game. I think it's safe to say in the first 5 ball games of the season, I haven't seen the lines for all of those games, but my assumption would say Cleveland would be the favorites in all of those ball games against those opponents, even at home against the Dallas Cowboys. So for Cleveland, I mean, this is a schedule, even though it's the toughest schedule, as you laid out for us, Chris, but they don't start in the midst of the toughness.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So you get an opportunity, if you take care of your business like you're supposed to, when you get in the midst of that gauntlet, you have room for error because you took care of your business early on. So when you look at those ball games against, you know, the Cowboys and Jacksonville and Washington and the Raiders and the Commanders, and then you get Philly, I mean, that's a prime opportunity. That's the best way you would like to start your season, knowing that you have one of the toughest schedules of the National Football League.
Yeah, the Browns, 1.5-point underdogs against the Cowboys.
Wow. I was wrong.
Yeah, 1.5-point underdogs against the Cowboys. So,
take Cleveland.
All right, we're going to see it. Nick Chubb, baby. Let's get it going. That defense, Myles Garrett. You know who doesn't have a tough schedule? The Saints and the Falcons have the easiest schedules in the leagues. And you touched on a little bit earlier about the NFC South. Who do you think has the best chance to win that division? Because nobody really jumps out to me as being a clear runaway, because there's so many different issues that all of these teams have here, whether it's at the wide receiver position, you know, for Carolina or Atlanta, New Orleans with their QB situation. Not sure what's going to happen.
You know, earlier I said some people feel like Atlanta could be a dark horse to come out of the NFC, knowing that they're in the South. And in regards to your question, I'll side with Tampa because I've seen them do it before with this group of guys under this coaching staff. Baker Mayfield revitalized his career last year in Tampa. You brought back Mike Evans, which is huge. You still got Chris Godwin. You was able to retain guys like Levante David. You just gave an extension to Antoine Winfield Jr. So some of your key components are still there in place from the success you had a year ago. In regards to Atlanta, we just haven't seen it. We haven't seen them do it before. I love the additions they've made, adding Kirk Cousins, number 1. Raheem Morris was a great hire as well. Players coach. They added some talent via free agency and then, of course, through the draft. But we haven't seen them put it together yet. Not saying that I don't expect them to, but you guys know how it is in sports. Sometimes the unknown could be scary. What do we know about Tampa? We've seen this group do it. And the thing I love about Tampa, Chris, they played some of their best football in playoff time. When you look at what they did in round 1, and even playing against Detroit in round 2, they took Detroit down to the wire, got off to a slow start, but they were battle-tested. They fought. Yes, they lost, but the way they fought made me feel very, very optimistic about what they could do moving forward. So I'll side with Tampa right now in regards to the NFC South, solely because we've seen these group of guys under this staff do it before.
Yeah, really great season for the Buccaneers. Nobody saw it coming. Baker Mayfield coming over, of course, big, as you said, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, doesn't matter who's that quarterback for Mike Evans.
Throw it to Mike, he's going to
get it. He's going to pick up his 1,000 yards every single season. No doubt about that. Any questions you have, it's not happening. But around the corner, y'all, we're going to take a more narrowed focus with the schedule release, because it's time to analyze and evaluate some of the AFC teams and what their schedules might mean for their success. That's coming up next.